Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. Today, I wanted to invite Beth on to talk about a lot of what she does, how she kind of got started, and her role in Valley News. And it was an interesting conversation. We kind of got on to Salisbury and the media creative space and how there should be more collaboration across the city as well. It was really, really great. So I'll now let Beth sort of explain who she is a little bit more. And thanks for coming back as always. And I'll see you very, very soon.
My name's Beth, and I'm a journalist at Valley News, a Wine Time Salisbury podcaster, and a social media blogger, I suppose.
You didn't sound 100% sure on the last one, Beth. I'll be honest. You didn't. It was a bit kind of, am I not? I don't know. But thank you so much for joining me once again. And so I mainly just wanted to, because the initial question that I always get is, why did you choose me to come on the podcast? Why did you want me to come on?
Please flatter me.
yeah. I mean, the simple answer is I always like to talk to people who are not necessarily in the same industry as me, but in like the industries that are kind of next door to mine, if that makes sense. So I mean, for me, obviously I've known Valley News for 4.5 to 5 years or so. I've known of them, and I've been aware of the paper and that kind of thing. For those who don't know, what do Valley News on average do? What are their kind of stories like? What the paper really does, that kind of thing, and then if you don't mind, what your role within Valley News is.
So Valley News is quite a small community-based kind of newspaper. We print monthly since I've been there, but I do believe previously they used to print more frequently. And we kind of just focus on really community-led based stories, really hyper local news. Since I've been there, we get to do some really cool features that I've really enjoyed doing. Kind of enjoyed bringing my experience of feature writing and things like that to the paper, creating maybe more extravagant, more in-depth features than we would have done previously. And my role, I'm the assistant editor. So I help out David Parker, who is our editor and owner of the newspaper, big time journalist, Fleet Street previously. I just kind of write lots of stories, follow leads, chase people up, see what's going on, talk to a lot of PRs, talk to a lot of Wiltshire Council, Salisbury Council, and just seeing what's going on really, trying to share people's stories.
Do you have a specific, because I'm sure, in the same way we kind of share stories, we share them differently obviously, but we share stories. Do you have a specific story that's very close to your heart, or something that you worked on that really touched you? But it could be more recently, but even in your past as well, that that has really kind of, I guess, stayed with you, I guess would be the best question there, or the best kind of.
Yeah, I think one story I did is this, Valley News or just in my general time of writing?
It's either. It's completely up to you.
One story I did, which I did for the Tab, which is a online student news organisation whilst I was at university, was I went to this conference in Brighton, right? Key part, Brighton, majorly left wing. And it was like Turning Point USA, who are a really right wing, NRA funded group. And Candace Owens was there and Charlie Kirk. And it was like, I just don't know politics at all. And I completely threw myself into this story in order to interview these guys. And they were so scary and like intimidating. But I was just really proud of myself for that, because I had to learn the world of like conservative memes and all these kind of things that they talk about that I had no idea about. So that one's pretty stuck with me, because the people in Brighton were going in and they were all there with their blue hair, and then there was Candace Owens being like, feminism shouldn't exist. So that one. But locally, I did a story recently on the chapel, because obviously current situation, closed for a very long time. And I love the chapel, and I love going out and dancing and being social and being with my friends, and to see it closed really makes me sad, and the thought that it might not reopen makes me even more sad. Just kind of like chatting with Amanda about what's considered culture and what isn't, and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed investigating that, and who is in charge, really, who gives out this money and what do they decide deserves it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I really feel for Amanda. For those who don't know, conveniently enough, we were doing a project myself, just just before COVID, I guess. We were like finishing up some projects and stuff, and then obviously COVID hit, so it was like, oh right, okay. So yeah, I mean, my heart always does go out to the nightlife community, but Amanda obviously especially as well. And I think it's going to be difficult, and it's a difficult thing, and I think unfortunately they have fallen through the cracks a bit. I don't know how, I don't know why. I don't necessarily want to comment on that specifically here, and that's not because I don't want to comment on it, but it's just more, it's not my area of expertise, because there may have been things that have caused that, or may be there, that I don't know or understand, so it's wrong of me to comment, right? And I think but I do hope, and my best hope, I guess, would be that they are able to continue when this is all over, and they're able to come back strong and all this. But I think, unfortunately, along with a lot of businesses, there's going to be a lot of businesses who unfortunately don't, for whatever reason, a combination of reasons, I'm sure, specifically, which is obviously very, very sad. But I think that something which, and I've done some content talking about this, towards the end of last year, was mainly what are businesses doing to adapt where possible, right, in regards to what they do, how they do it, etc. Have you kind of, in your role, for me, your background is interesting. So if you don't mind, just how did you get into journalism? Because for me, it's always a different story in regards to, like, whenever I talk to journalists, or whenever I talk to TV people, or whenever I talk to anyone who does any level of creative work of any description, it's always very different in regards to how they actually got in originally.
So I decided to do linguistics at university, and when I was at uni, I thought, right, I want to join a society, something a bit fun. I was flicking through all of them, and I thought, let's be real, if I sign up to netball, I'm not going to go. I never went when I was at college because I just can't be asked. So I thought, okay, let's actually branch out into something that I know that I'm going to enjoy and want to go to. And that's when I saw the tab. So they did weekly meetings, and it was kind of like a very social thing, and they had writers, and you could progress up to the editors and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, well, I like writing, I'm doing a language degree, this makes a lot of sense. When I was quite young, I had like a music blog, because I've always been really into Radio 1 and stuff. So I thought, I know, I'll write about up and coming artists on a little music blog. So I just thought, well, this is the next step to that. So I signed up to the tab, had the best 3 years there ever. Was writing for them 3 years, was their features editor in my last year. And then in my final year of university, I was lucky enough to secure a placement at Hearst magazines, who own like Cosmo, Women's Health, Elle, etc. And I went there for a month in the November, and that was amazing, and I had the best time. And then I did a week at the Telegraph and 2 weeks at Time Out London. And then the pandemic came. So that's kind of how I guess I just got into it, because after joining the tab, I just realized, wow, if I can get paid for this, and this is great. This is exactly what I want to do. So I've just been kind of chipping away at it ever since.
Okay. Now, that's always interesting for me. I mean, did you, I guess, have a dream of being like, I want to work for X newspaper, Y company, etc., when you were like in the tab and really kind of, getting your name out there and really practicing and really learning the journalism trade, I guess it would be known as, more so? Or were you just like, well, I kind of enjoy this, let's see, how long I can do it, kind of thing?
I think Cosmo's always been one, being a girl and a young girl as well, reading it growing up. I've always loved it. So that's obviously a dream. But I remember going up to London and picking up Time Out and just being like, this is actually really cool. And just all the stuff that was in there, and so much variety, and some of it was free and some of it was really expensive. But I think that's what I've kind of tried to bring to my blog. kind of diverting from that question slightly, but is like a time out Salisbury, things to do, where to have fun, where to drink, where to take your mum, where to take your date, where to take your best friend. So I think, yeah, probably those two publications I always had in the back of my mind. And I think they were kind of reflected in my stories for the tab, kind of interviewing local YouTubers and kind of local places to go on dates and stuff in Brighton, or drinking cheap beers and stuff like that. So yeah, I think probably those two would be the main ones.
Okay. I mean, that's always interesting for me. I mean, as I say, I mean, a lot of the podcast for me has kind of become this place to really explore other people's genres, other people's jobs, why they do it, how they do it, etc. And something which I found interesting and I think is a really positive thing, and that's why I want to mention it here. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, you could probably give some context because I believe you actually created it, but you, I believe, started, like, I want to say it's like a media creative group on Facebook. I'm not, like, I'm trying to go around it without going around it, if that makes sense. Because, do you mind just talking a little bit about that and sort of, okay, well, firstly, why and how did you start it and what is the group's point, I guess, would be the main question there. And then number two, do you see it as a strong asset for creators in Salisbury, whether they're, blog writers, filmmakers, photographers, etc., creators in general, as a group or an asset for them to use?
So I started it because I thought how lucky I am to get the places I've been work experience wise was just through me talking to people. Like, I was just always talking to people, making friends, saying, this is what I want to do. Do you know anyone? And that was people always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And sadly, in this media industry, sometimes that can be true. And so I just thought, wouldn't it be great locally if more people knew more people that were just in this field and doing things and creating stuff, whether it's a hobby or a career or whatever. So I just wanted to kind of create a space where we could all be. And then if anyone needed anything or wanted to borrow some equipment or wanted some advice or needed a contact, then it could kind of be used in that way. I hope it will become quite a valuable tool. I think at the moment it's still quite small. It's very early days, and hopefully we can grow it further. Anyone listening to this that wants to join, please join. It's called Salisbury's Young Media Creatives. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll leave a link in the description for those who are interested. But yeah.
Yeah, so I hope that eventually it'll get to a point where there's enough of us and we can all just kind of bounce off each other's creativity. And hopefully post-COVID, maybe we can make it into a thing where we go to the pub once a month and all catch up and have a pint and talk about what we've been up to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was always something which was always interesting to see as like different groups and different kind of sets of people really try to network and etc. And for me, a strong thing for Salisbury has always been the community aspect of it, and for example, Salisbury Indies really help each other, and those kind of things, like all the retailers help and all the hospitality industry helps each other, and that kind of thing. It's this big community effort, especially when a couple of years ago we had Novichok situation, which was like a pre-COVID prep, I guess, in some ways, and then now more than ever, as we go into the next stages. I was going to say the later stages, hopefully, but we'll say next stages for the sake of this conversation of COVID. Specifically, I think, for me, it's always been an interesting one, because for me, a lot of Salisbury seems to, especially some of the bigger outlets, seem to, I guess, push in different directions from what I've seen, but not as much anymore. But I think that there's like a new breed, I don't know whether you would agree, but there's like a new breed of creators, a new breed of like the media, I guess, world in Salisbury, that seem to be working together a lot more than I've seen previously in my own experience. Would you kind of agree with that, or if you don't agree with that, do you think that that's a positive thing to happen, that more people are working together from a collaborative?
I think it's definitely positive, and I think that it's a good way to make Salisbury seem cool and young, because I think a lot of people don't think that. And I Yeah, I think that a lot of people are working together more. I think there's maybe less hostility or competition, that kind of, we can't work together, we're against each other because we've got different names above our newspapers or whatever. And I think that's a shame, because I think greater things always come out of collaborating, and it's always better to have competition, because otherwise, what's the point, really? Um, but I think it will be a good thing. And I think, especially with younger people, it will be nice for us to all kind of support each other. And I think it's something that I see on a big scale in big groups, like journalism groups on Facebook that you might be a part of, or like big London groups. But it wasn't something that I would ever kind of think about small scale or in Salisbury. Or I always think about like people who might be trying to figure out what they want to do when they're older. And I would encourage those people who might want a career in the media to join the group as well, because we're here to answer your questions. I'm always happy to answer questions from anyone. I mean, I say that as if I'm some sort of crazy esteemed person. I'm really not. But I've done university and I've got a job, so at least I can help you up until that point. So I think it would just be nice to kind of help everyone build each other up instead of people knocking each other down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I completely agree, and I think it's one of those things where, especially as you talk about answering questions and really helping others like come on and push up as well. I think that there's this, I guess, in some ways, in some industries, this question of when can you give advice, right? When can you share what you know? When are you abstained enough? When are you good enough at what you do to be able to teach? And the question that I always make is, or point I always make is, right now I can teach you what I've done. I can't teach you what I'm going to do, but I'm also learning myself. But I can teach you what I've done because I've done it, right? So I think as long as you're one or two steps ahead of whoever it is you're trying to help and trying to teach and trying to guide, then there's nothing technically wrong with that. And at the end of the day, as long as the person who you're helping is getting valuable information from it or valuable insight from your experience, then it's valuable for everyone, right? I think, and I don't know whether you find this when you teach anyone anything. When I teach my client something, or a friend of mine, or a colleague, or whoever it is, I get better at what I'm talking about, because it allows me to really fine tune what I'm talking about, to know where where I might be weaker on, or etc. And then I can really target those things to get better myself and surround myself with people who are better than me at whatever it was that I was talking about.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something I used to do with exams as well. I used to love like teaching my friends, or my friends teaching me, and then you can both kind of figure out where in that topic you're weaker or whatever. But I think creatively as well, whether someone's above you, below you, or whatever, they're going to have ideas you never thought of, and vice versa. So I think it's just great in terms of creating new content or looking at things the way people might not have looked at them before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it's definitely something which you should do if you're a creative in general, because it allows you to. There is no such thing as I'm higher than you in creative and lower than you in creative, in my opinion. It's all just a kind of line. We're all different. We're all like, oh, I'm a little bit more right or left than you, or etc. We're all kind of on the same level. We just think about things differently, or we tackle problems differently, or we have more creative solutions. So for me, and a lot of the projects I'm working on at the moment, with from a longer term perspective as videography and etc. and doing videos, is having more creative minds in the room or involved in the project is actually better for the project overall, because you're able to. Sometimes you can get very one-sided in regards to how this is how I do it. This is the way I've done it for years, so I'm going to do it this way. Have you found the same, I guess, in the journalism space, or that kind of space, that there is that sometimes kind of mindset of I'm going to do it this way because that's the way I've done it for thousands of years?
I think I've noticed that in terms of getting a job a lot, because I don't have a journalism degree or an NTCJ. So that's like a qualification that you can have to be a journalist, but you don't have to have it. It's kind of more towards news, kind of hardcore news, I'd say, than say a magazine features writer, for example. But for example, Salisbury Journal, I could not apply to work at the Salisbury Journal because I don't have an NTCJ. So I would say that's quite a traditional way of looking at things, because I think with my experience and all the kind of work that I've put in on that side of things, I think that still should give me the opportunity to apply. So in that sense, yes. And I think maybe as well in print, working in print, having gone from kind of like student journalism where it's like, yeah, you write as you speak and it's really buzzwordy and it's all getting students to laugh and be involved, to then writing in print. And David, do you know David?
I don't personally, but I know Carl from Valley News more than I know
Yeah.
David, but I'm aware of the kind of like infrastructure, if that makes sense. In
David obviously was in his prime in Fleet Street, so he's an older gentleman. So he, has his ways of doing things. And to be honest, it's kind of been great learning from him, because it's been learnt the old school way, and I've learnt things and how to do them in a very traditional sense. And I kind of love that. I love that aspect of Valley News where it does have an old school vibe about it. But I think that's a good part of the traditional kind of side, and then probably the applying to jobs kind of side is not as great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really glad that you mentioned the kind of applying for jobs scenario, because it's very similar in sometimes marketing world and sometimes in the filmmaking world as well. It's like, well, you haven't been to film school, so you possibly couldn't be a good filmmaker. And I think the reality in the creative world is, if you're, from what I've found anyway, some of the best people aren't necessarily the ones that have gone to uni or gone to this or gone to that. Yes, some of them are, right? Of course. But some of them are also the ones who've just decided, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it until I get really, really good at it. Personally for me, I'm completely self-taught in what I do, and I'm still here running a media company, so I can't be doing it that badly. But I think it's about, if you've gone through the official education, you'll come out as that education teaches you the ways of doing things. So you'll come out a lot more, older school, as we were talking about before, older school specifically in regards to how, but how you tackle a problem, how you do things. And I don't think necessarily, in my industry at least, that's necessarily always a good thing, because sometimes that's not necessarily the only or best way to fix a creative problem when there is one on a shoot, for example. But sometimes that may be true as well. So it really just depends. It's like there's the same solution or two separate solutions for the same problem. It's subjective on which you believe is better. For me, it's interesting to explore that though, and I think as employers, look to build their teams again after COVID, or if you are an employer listening to this, I think you should be a little bit more open-minded to get to know the person a little bit more before you go, oh, they don't have the piece of paper, so they couldn't possibly be very good, because I think you're kind of screwing yourself just for the sake of it, because you want this piece of paper. And I understand why you want the piece of paper, because it's a validation, but a lot in my industry, I've never been asked what qualifications I have ever for a job. They asked to see my work.
No, exactly. A portfolio over the degree you have, etc.
Not what bit of paper do you own. But again, it's very job related. It's very industry specific. I think in some cases there will be, as I say, some older thinkers that are more, you have to have a university education, or you have to have this, or you have to have that to be able to, get this job or do this project or be like this or be like this. But at the end of the day, if you're good at what you do, and you're good at what you do, you can let your work speak for itself. That's personally what I do, and that seems to work for me, and has worked for me previously. Have you found that there is the same kind of, and we will move away from journalism in a minute, but is there kind of the same mindset sometimes in journalism in regards to, like, do you find yourself being an opportunity where you can let your work speak for yourself, or do you have to do more of the heavy lifting yourself when it comes to maybe the conversation or the interview process, or etc.?
I think it kind of depends. I spent the whole of last lockdown building myself a website, because I thought, right, this is perfect, create a little portfolio of all my work, have it all in one place, because a lot of my previous stuff is digital. And a lot of my print stories for Valley News go onto the web as well. So I just thought I can create like a highlights reel. I can have my Insta blog on there. I can have my best published stories, the ones I like the most. And that's been great in terms of the process, because I can just say, here, take a look at my website. But there's also all the old fashioned stuff and all the inputting of all your qualifications and all your degrees and A levels and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I still think that although you can show a body of your work, there's a lot of the interview process that comes with it and all the other stuff. And I think maybe, especially in journalism, if you're going for that kind of role where you're interviewing people and stuff, I think the interview process is probably quite important, because you need to be personable and you need to get people on your side, because you want them to talk to you, right? Like, who's going to talk to some sort of unapproachable, scary, horrible person and tell them about their deepest fears? No one. So I think that is important, especially in the journalism industry, is being approachable and likable and being able to have that kind of conversation with someone where they do open up. And I think that's probably what some of the greats do, especially like TV people.
Yeah, and it's very similar when you look at filmmaking and etc. as well, because I've had a lot of clients and I know a lot of people who are like, wait, you want me to sit in front of camera and talk to it? No, we're not going to do that. That's scary. And I completely get it, because for a long time I was like, no, I'm not going in front of camera. I'm a cameraman. I'm behind the camera.
I'm so rubbish on camera. Like, I write words behind a computer. I'm so rubbish on camera. I really am.
I think it's something which you will, as you know, as one would do more video, and as I work with more people, it's something which you can, I guess, warm them up to. I think personally for me, and I think that's something that people can warm up to. Something that I did want to touch on that's, I think, interesting and has crossover here is, I know that you do also run a podcast, whether it's you, whether indirectly or you're co-hosting it or etc. But what? Okay, well, let's start with, what is your podcast? What is it about? When is it? What is it? Etc. And then we'll kind of build off from there.
It's called Wine Time Salisbury, and it's me and Andy Moore from Moore's Wine and Cheese Bar. And we spend the first half tasting a new wine that Andy picks, and he tells me all about it, and he teaches me how to be, eloquent in the wine world and swirl it properly and sniff it and all that kind of stuff, which is great fun. And then we go on to talk about a topical topic, so which is kind of my journalism-y part. And up until now, it's been pretty local. We've kept it local topics, local things that have been going on in Salisbury. I think as we go on, we'll probably go on to bigger topics that are just kind of in the news in general, and get into some heated debates and get some guests on and all that kind of thing. But yeah, it's pretty new, good fun. We started it. I walked into Moles one day to ask him about what he thought about pedestrianisation for an article, and he just said, I want to start a podcast one day. And I said, yeah, me too. And then we literally just started it, and we've met each other for about 20 minutes.
Cool. I mean, it's great to hear that there is that kind of creative spark with others as well, because I've had situations like that's very similar in regards to, you just meet someone and go, actually, we should do this, and then you end up doing things, and etc. Because that was going to be my next question. How did it start? Right. I think that's a really cool story, and I think I really like that. And as a concept, I think, firstly, how have you found like the podcasting experience, I guess, would be the question there, number one. But then also number two, do you think that it will be something which you will kind of grow upon within maybe Valley News or within yourself personally?
I have found it really fun. I edit it and everything, so we go and record it, and then I come home and edit it and stuff. And I'm not very techie with that side of thing yet, so I'm still kind of learning all that kind of stuff, teaching myself bits and bobs. But time is just, I've got loads of time now that we're back in lockdown, but before that I just had no time. So I think I'm going to spend some more time learning it properly, getting to more grips with more of the techie stuff, and I'd love to take it further throughout my career as well. I mean, my absolute icon is Annie Mac. She's like the coolest woman in the world. I adore her. She's my idol, icon, love her. So really, I just need to learn to DJ, and then I'm sorted. So when I'm on Radio 1, I'll let you know.
I was gonna say, feel free to give me a call, and that would be exciting. And then we can jam out on Radio 1. It would be very exciting. Okay, yeah. I mean, for those who may, I guess, not know what's kind of like, I guess, next for you in regards to, like, you've obviously got Valley News stuff, continuing with that. You've also got then the podcast that we discussed. Is there like anything that you're working on in the behind the scenes, or like anything that you haven't really achieved yet that you're hoping to achieve, or not? There may not be.
I would like to, this year, I really want to get my first kind of like freelance side of things taking off. I'd like to get good at pitching, and I'd like to get a byline in some sort of national publication. That would probably be something that I would love to say that I've done outside of my work experience stuff, like actually a paid for commissioned freelance piece would be great. But other than that, I really want to continue to grow my Instagram blog. It's taken me so long to make it good and to have people engaging in it and following it. And I just want to kind of keep at it because it's taken me so long. It's like my little baby. So just to see that take off further would be great. But I mean, this year, just having people message me and saying, this is what I'm up to. Do you want to write about it? And like, I did the isolation diaries at the beginning of lockdown, and I wrote about a load of different people doing different things, and some lady in Spain and how she was dressing up as a dinosaur to entertain her kids. And hearing all those stories and just sharing them on my blog was so fun. So it's really been a pleasure to have that. And I think to take that further and kind of create some more different content that's going to be fun and engaging for people as well.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I think that's really important. I think it's a great opportunity. And I was talking to a client earlier today about this lockdown period being an opportunity for people to really fine tune what they want to do in regards to how do they promote their business if they're looking more commercial, but what else are they doing that they're passionate about and they really want to do. For those who don't know what you do on your Instagram, what I guess the question there is simply, what do you do? And then like, how did you get started with that?
So I usually champion kind of like local places where you can go and eat, drink, things to do. And then I kind of write some personal stuff, but not very often, to be honest. I kind of stay away from that because I'm not very, not that I'm not very personal, I'm probably quite open about things, but I think people give less of a shit about me and care more about fun things, which I would want to read about fun things. So I just kind of try and keep it quite fun. I just realised I swore. Was I allowed to swear?
That's fine, don't worry. Everyone says that after they swear. They're like, wait, am I allowed to do that?
Swear? So yeah, it's just fun things to do. Local culture, local businesses, independents and what they're up to, food reviews, drink reviews. I'm hoping to do during this lockdown. Aldi have released like a premium range of wines. I'm hoping to do some tasting of those so that if people want some budget wine learning, they can learn about some wines without paying a massive price. So I'm hoping to do that over this lockdown. And yeah, and it started because I was in Brighton for university, and it's just like a hive of culture there. There's so much going on. If you've ever been, the lanes are beautiful with all the independent shops, and I just thought people need to know about this stuff, and students need to know where they can go where they don't pay £10 for a pint and stuff like that. So that's why it started. And then when I moved back home to come to Salisbury, I just adapted it to Salisbury.
No, that's, I mean, again, like one of those things. For me, it's really interesting to hear kind of how people get started and why do they create the content they do and how do they go about creating it as well. I think it's going to be great to see kind of where you are with your work, but also where the blog is and etc. in say a year to two, because I think it will be in a very different place than it is now, right? And I think that as long as you keep developing and keep learning in regards to what you want to do and experimenting and trying new things, I think that you'll carve out somewhat of a niche within Salisbury specifically, but also, hopefully further afield as well eventually in what you do, and, to get your voice out there, I guess is the point there. Overall, I think if anyone's going to take anything from this podcast specifically, it's try to do multiple things, if that makes sense, but that are around what you do, right? So don't, I guess, have your eggs all in one basket, so to speak. There's a lot of talk in the business world at the moment, and has been for a while, about not having all your eggs in one basket and why that may be a bad decision or bad thing for you. Is there anything, that's kind of everything I wanted to really kind of cover today mostly. Is there anything that you've had jump to mind? Any questions that you maybe have for me? Or anything that, it's just, this point of the podcast is mainly just for me to give the guest an opportunity to sort of soundboard or share something that they necessarily may want to or have thought of during the interview at all.
I think,
if there's anything at all, there may not be.
I think there was something I was going to ask you about creatives. I can't remember what it was. What was I going to ask? Oh, opportunity. Do you think that Salisbury is a place of opportunity for creatives?
I think Salisbury is yes. The simple answer to that question is yes, there is. But you have to go about it in the correct way if you're going to actually have opportunity. I think that you need to do something different. Now, that doesn't mean do something completely out of left field. That just means do something that someone else isn't doing, right? So don't do what Beth's doing. Don't do what I'm doing. Don't do what XYZ person's doing, because clearly they're already doing that. So where's the demand going to be? What you can do is you can take an idea of, say, for example, the ideas I have, or the idea of what I'm doing, or the idea of what Beth's doing, for example, but then put your own spin on it, because what happens then is you kind of develop your own sort of understanding, your own development, your own want, and then also people will be attracted to that, because they're attracted to a person instead of being attracted to I'm going to do this. But yeah, I think there's a lot, especially as Salisbury seems to now be more community driven than ever. I think there's going to be more and more opportunities for people who do want to actually get them, their name out there, get to know people within the Salisbury community, and are willing to reach out, I guess, is the best point now. I think reach out and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Who can help, or can you help? Because I think that's the main thing for me. I mean, when I started 3.5 to nearly 4 years ago now, I was just like, why are people not filming what's going on? There's a lot going on. Why is there not videos going out, showcasing the city? And back then we could do events. I'm sure they'll come back. I think that's one of the appeals of Salisbury. The culture, the art, the beauty, the dancing, the whatever it is part of the magic, I think. And I think that if you're going to do anything in regards to Salisbury specifically, but this could be London, this could be Brighton, this could be Southampton, this could be anywhere, you have to understand where a gap in the market, where the gap in the market is, number one, but also number two, if you're in the market or want to be in the market, where you are in that market, as well, personally for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right with kind of like the niches thing, and people taking and choosing what they want to do. And I think for me, it's always just been fun. Like, it sounds basic and it sounds shallow, but I'm probably not going to be a hardcore news reader, and I wouldn't want to be either, because it's not really my thing. I think just finding what you love about life or you're passionate about, and then taking that's definitely the way forward, I think, in terms of your creative style or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be whether that's just your hobby that you're doing it as, or whether you actually want to make a career out of it, right? There's nothing wrong with trying something as a hobby that then you're like, actually, wouldn't mind doing this all the time. But it does, and I don't know whether you found this, it does become very different in regards to how you feel, how you treat it, how you are when it is your source of income.
Yeah, definitely. It's a game changer. I don't think it makes you like it less, but I think it just changes the dynamic probably.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything go over? Ask me. Anything that jumped in your mind during this conversation? And then if not, where can people find you who may be interested in anything that you discussed today?
I don't think there's anything more that I've got to say. Just kind of like planning things in the background at the minute. I have nothing that exciting, but I'm hoping exciting things will come about. So
I'm sure they
will. Well, actually, that's a good thing. I am searching high and low for good news stories. So if you have a good news story, please get in touch. You can find me at Valley News at beth@newvalleynews.co.uk. On Insta, I'm Beth Doherty Media. And Wine Time is Wine Time Salisbury. We're on Spotify, we're on Instagram, and I think we're on Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. I don't have an Apple. So there we go. That was very smooth, wasn't it? That was like...
That's brilliant. But yeah, thank you ever so much for your time as always. And it's, as I say, the main point of the podcast at the moment has always been to explore why people do things and how. Like, what are their core reasons? Why do you do what you do? Why do you wake up every day in doing what you do, right? Especially now, and what are the core reasons that drive you forward?
Yeah, definitely. What are my core reasons?
Well, you can go into your core reasons if you want to, but that was the cliche statement to end the podcast. But no, fine. Let's go with it. What is Beth's core reasons?
No, my core reasons.
Haha, put you on the spot now.
My core reasons are wine, fun, and to share interesting people's stories, because they're the best part of this job, right? I'm not interesting, other people are. So that's why I love this job, is because you get to learn about everyone else, and everyone else is really interesting. So there we go. That's why I wake up in the morning, to learn about you.
Nailed it. Love it. Thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much for joining me once again, ladies and gents. I hope you did enjoy that episode of the podcast where we had a great chat with Beth this week. I will be joining with a brand new guest potentially next week. If I'm honest, I don't actually know who it's going to be as of right the time of recording this outro. But yeah, thank you so much for coming back and joining me. If you did enjoy this video and you would like to see what Beth and I were talking about in regards to the group or any of Beth's links, they are in the description down below. So thank you so much for joining me once again. I'll see you very, very soon for some more content creation and more content in general. But yeah, look after yourself, and I'll see you very, very soon.